Hi, everyone. Carl Steinbeck here. Want to cover the Karen Reed case tonight. And we had day 15. Keep in mind, day 15 was supposed to happen yesterday, but Karen Reed was sick, so they didn't have any court trial yesterday, but they had it resumed today. So thankfully, Karen's doing better. And so I think that what I'll do tonight is just do the overview and discussion of the cross-examination for the witnesses. There's a couple more videos they had of Karen Reed, so a couple quick clips. So let's, but the judge, I want to show you what the judge says here in the beginning. When they came in today, of course, trial started late again.
Well, I'd say the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is now open. You may be seated.
Okay. Good morning again, counsel. Good morning again, Ms. Reed. Good morning, jurors. So a couple of things. We appreciate your patience this morning. Remember, I told you the other day that we're trying to cut back on sidebar conferences. So we took some time now to address issues that we would have otherwise.
We're trying to cut back on sidebar conferences. So how do you cut back on sidebar conferences and address the issues that are happening to deny the defense a fair trial? You just can't cut them off and say you're not going to have a sidebar. They need to be heard. Hank is running roughshod over the rights of Karen, and you are summarily just sustaining his objections. And this court is just the worst disaster I've ever seen for denial of justice. It's not even they're not even trying to make it look fair. I mean, normally when I've seen people being railroaded, I see that they're at least trying to do something to like throw you a bone. But here it's like they're just so brazenly one-sided. This judge is just so beholden to helping the prosecutor. When does she ever get mad about the prosecution? And then do they ever have to ask for a sidebar? Hardly ever, because she's doing everything she can to protect them. So it's just very disgusting to see. It's there's a lot of me that's just, it's hard to stomach this. It's just so over the top, a joke of a court. That's all I can say. Over and over again. It's just unbelievable. It's just mind boggling that you can have something like this going on. And you got this thing that is in a courthouse and you got a judge in a robe there, but she has obvious disdain for Karen and the defense. I mean, I think she really hates Karen and the defense team. And to see this kind of behavior of a judge is just very shocking. And just keep in mind, she just got up and left yesterday. She just got up and left while Hank Brennan wasn't even done with the witness on cross-examination. It's all about we got to end it at 4. So we appreciate your patience. She has no patience for the defense being able to do their job. So anyway, this is a complete joke of makes a complete joke of justice. Yeah. T, you're saying she keeps bringing up the sidebar issue, trying to get the jurors to resent the sidebar because she knows it's the only defense who could always request them. I sure hope this defense is able to pick up on of what a railroad job Hank Brennan's trying to do. So if they can't figure that out, that he's hiding the ball, then you're really not you're left for a loss of any options. And if you don't have the jury as the equalizer from getting railroaded up there in Massachusetts, and anyway.
And also, I really appreciate your patience and understanding about yesterday. Sometimes during trials, things come up that are completely unavoidable, and I tried to cancel you as soon as we could so you wouldn't even have to come to court. So I appreciate that. I do have to ask you those questions. Were you all able to follow my instructions?
I just think that nobody's even heard of anything about Karen Reed when they go home and stuff like that. It's finding it hard to believe. They're not had every single person raise their hand. The jurors aren't going to raise their hand on this kind of stuff. And the more Hank wastes their time, I think the more they're going to be inclined to want to surf the internet. That's just human nature. All right, so let's jump ahead here to 102. Here's we get those.
Appreciate your patience this morning. Remember, I told you the other day that we're trying to cut back on sidebar. Appreciate your patience this morning. Remember, I told you the other day that we're trying to cut back on sidebar conferences. So we took some time now to address issues, and I tried to keep we were last here.
Yes.
Did anyone have
20.
Okay, here's number 20.
There's Amy Wendell here. If you guys have really been going at it, this is sort of like a last date element to it. Was that going on?
That was not going on. I made it clear to you, I'm never breaking up with you. You know, not never that we're in this good or bad, but you're the best person I've ever.
Commonwealth would ask to show clip 19.
I don't think, I don't see how John would know about my text with Brian. And I'm not sure if he knew, he would have reacted very strongly. I think we would have broken up, but I don't think John would have lost it and caused a fight. I didn't feel like John's emotions with me got really strong.
Thank you.
Okay, so clip 20, that wasn't the best audio on there, but basically John told her, I'm never breaking up with you. You're the best person ever. And so that's Weishang introducing this clip here. So trying to make it look like he was serious about her when we know everything else says he wasn't. So it makes it look like he's leading her on and stringing her along. So that actually makes John look bad. So I'm like, what's Hank trying to pull here? He's just trying to get some kind of like drive-by hatred going on for Karen, looking like she's just some kind of jolted psycho ex about to be an ex. Anyway, and then clip 19, it says, I don't see how John would know about my text with Brian. And then she goes on to say, I don't think John will react very strongly anyway. And she didn't think that John's emotions with her seemed strong. Okay, that's again her telling it like it is. Well, that's what the conversation was that we saw in a number of the text conversations, in particular that Friday night, the 28th, when she's telling John, hey, look, if you're not into me, you don't want this serious, then just tell me and I'll leave. You'll never hear from me again. So she's not some raging psychotic that's if you can't have me, I'm gonna destroy my life and try to kill you at the same time. None of that kind of stuff's going on here. So, but that's what he's trying to do, is just misdirect and mislead. So then next we heard from one of the children that John O'Keefe was taking care of, his sister's kids, because both his sister and her sister's husband had died in a short period of time. So John stepped up and was taking care of them, and they were living with him. So this one, I won't even need to say her name, but it was not televised. We just heard reports after she testified and got off the stand as to what she said. But in a nutshell, she said that, the relationship after they went to Aruba, the relationship pretty much was heading to a close at that point. So it's not this kind of thing where all of a sudden things went bad and Karen lost it. So Karen was seeing the writing on the wall. This thing isn't going forward for anything serious, because it's been 2 years they're dating. John wasn't serious about getting married, and nothing is really stable. And they're not if she can't trust them, then what's the point? So next we have then Sergeant Zachary Clark. He's been with the Massachusetts State Police for 7 years. He currently works for the Massachusetts or the Norfolk DA's office as a member of the detective unit there since February of 2023. Lally did the direct on him and said he was working with the state crime scene services section on February 1st of 22, and his request to go to the Canton Police Department. He arrived there at 9 a.m. and met with Proctor, and he assisted in documenting the execution of the vehicle search warrant for Karen's Lexus. And keep in mind, this is people that were present included not only Proctor, so Proctor's name is still coming up again. There's also that forensic scientist we heard from later in the day named Maureen Hartnett, various CPD members, and members of the state police crash reconstruction section, including Trooper Joe Paul, who we saw in the first trial, members of the Norfolk SPDU. So it's like, why are all these Canton Police Department folks there? So this is an office that's an organization that's conflicted, and yet they got the key piece of evidence there, this vehicle at the Canton Police Department in their Sally Port, which is conflicted. So this thing is such a hot mess. So he goes on to say he photographed the Lexus. He looked for friction ridge impressions, which are like fingerprints. Another way of saying fingerprints. Then he also went to 34 Fairview to document the alleged location of the incident. And he also took photos of the odometer and the vehicle's backup camera. So let's go ahead and go to the cross here then. So he was on the stand just about an hour and 16 minutes.
Individual ridge events. And
There you go, David Iannetti, local guy to Boston there, longtime criminal.
Good morning.
attorney.
good morning, sir.
Your earliest involvement in this case was on February 1st of 2022.
That's correct.
You ended up, and by the way, at that time, you were a trooper assigned to the crime scene services section,
That's correct.
and that was in which town in Massachusetts?
Where I was assigned, sir?
Yes,
Maynard.
Maynard, okay. About a year later, you actually joined the Norfolk CPAC unit or the Norfolk Detectives Unit, correct?
That's correct.
And when you joined the Norfolk CPAC unit, Lieutenant Brian Tully was the supervisor of that unit, was he not?
Yes, he was.
You are still with that unit, correct?
That's correct.
So you've been there for approximately 2 years, a little bit more than 2 years.
That's correct.
And so you were there when Lieutenant Tully was removed as the supervisor of that unit, correct?
That's sustained, and folks should to disregard that.
I'm not going to request an instruction.
All right, hold on.
Jurors, pay no attention to that question or answer. That is not properly before you with this witness.
Is Lieutenant Tully still the supervisor of that unit?
Yes.
Yes,
I'm going to see you at sidebar for just a minute, please.
look at how the judge is jumping up, trying to stop this from coming out.
Lieutenant Tully
I'm
is,
not going to request an
Lieutenant
instruction.
Tully.
Lieutenant,
Lieutenant Tully is no longer working there. So wonder why. Was he part of that crackdown that state police headquarters had on Trooper Proctor? And also they did some crackdown a little bit on Sergeant Buchanan.
Lieutenant Tully was removed as the supervisor of that unit, correct?
That's sustained, and folks should to
How's this not relevant? This is why this whole thing's a sham. It's just not a court of law. It's just an absolute. It's just window dressing for the rule of law and justice.
disregard that.
I'm not going to request an instruction.
Jurors,
I mean, she's visibly mad that the police are looking bad on this. I mean, that's not the role of a judge. Judge is supposed to be neutral, and she's
pay no
out of
attention to that
control.
question or answer. That is not properly before you with this witness.
Is Lieutenant Tully
Why he worked there? He worked there. He knows this guy. Why can't he talk about it? So it's just again a joke.
still the supervisor of that unit?
Yes.
I'm going to see you at sidebar for just a minute, please.
Yeah. See, the prosecutor didn't even ask for this. She did, and she just told the members of the jury, as I played here in the beginning tonight, how she said they're going to cut back on sidebars. But boy, you mentioned something bad the cops are doing. Somebody got reassigned or punished. Oh my gosh, she's gonna unload on them. So it's, I hope the juries, when they see stuff like this, I would hope these guys see it. These jurors, if they don't, then it's you're never going to get justice in Massachusetts. Yeah, there's let's see. Yeah, there's a hot mic moment people are talking about where you can hear the judge call Yannetti a derogatory name, but I'm not sure that I heard that. Let me speak. But it wouldn't surprise me if she did.
Okay, so going back to February 1st of 2022, you learned that Michael Proctor had called your unit, resulting in your involvement in this case on that date, correct?
That's right.
And Michael Proctor had requested that you go to the Canton Police Station?
So look at that. They're not going into Tully anymore. So she blocked the defense again. So, yep. Evidence of bias and right to confront witnesses is part of the American justice system guaranteed by our Constitution, but there's not a Constitution they follow up there in Massachusetts. So
That's correct.
At the time, were you aware that the Canton Police Station, or the Canton Police Department, I should say, had a conflict of interest with this investigation?
Objection.
Rephrase it. Rephrase it.
what? Rephrase it. Why? It's a perfectly legitimate question. She's just trying to cut him off the knees. I'm telling you, as a defense attorney, when you have bogus objections and you got a judge that's just rubber stamping everything, totally siding with you when they should be ruling against the prosecution. And what you're doing is just encouraging the prosecution to keep objecting and objecting. We saw that in the first trial. So it's just absolute. I don't have words for it. It's that over the top, nauseating, sick to see.
Well, were you aware when you were called out on this case that John O'Keefe had been found mortally wounded on Brian Albert's lawn?
I was advised of that fact upon my arrival.
Okay. And you were also.
Yeah, and you guys can make complaints against this judge. I saw something where you guys keep talking about how do you complain against a judge, and somebody said you can't complain against a judge if you're not in America. Well, anybody in the world can make a complaint. You guys are all, the public proceedings are for the world to see. That's why this is televised. So you don't have to be specific to the locale there in Massachusetts, nor do you have to be a U.S. citizen anywhere. So anyway, there's a video I did about 10 days ago that walks you through what the process is online, and it's very simple. But so anyway, you can go back to that if you want. It's the one that has to do with the judicial scorecard.
So were you advised of the fact that Brian Albert's brother was a Canton police detective?
I did not know that.
All right. Still, it was the Canton Police Station and not a state police barracks where Michael Proctor instructed you to go, correct?
That's right.
Was he there before you, or did you arrive there before him?
He was there before me.
When you got there, where did you see Michael Proctor within the Canton Police Department?
Inside the garage bay.
And is that also called a sally port?
Yes.
And when you got there, was Michael Proctor the one to direct you to the Lexus SUV?
Yes.
And when you got there on February 1st, that was the first time that you laid eyes on that vehicle, correct?
Yes, it is.
There was no other investigation.
Again, why would the vehicle be taken to Canton if they have a conflict? Because John O'Keefe got killed at Brian Albert's house, a cop. He also got Brian Albert's brother, Chris Albert, is a cop at Canton. So that's a direct conflict. The vehicle should never have been brought there because why? If there's a conflict, there could be a motivation to help protect your brother and blame somebody else if he was involved. So they got to, that's how conflicts work. You got to think of what is the worst case scenario. Is there any chance of an influence that somebody may have to try to steer the case going a different direction? And so if you got your brother, two brother cops, one is in Boston, one is in Canton, and the death happens on the Boston cop's lawn and the Canton Police Department, you bring the vehicle there. You're telling me Proctor didn't want to bring it to Canton? He could have brought it to what they call barracks there for the state police, where they kept it away from the Canton Police Department. And think about this. Proctor's the one that had it brought there, and Proctor knew also the McCabe. So he was totally conflicted from the get-go, and he helped steer this to way they needed to help smooth things out to not have any proper inquiry done at 34 Fairview, nor the party members that were there.
Investigator from the State Police Detective Unit or the CPAC unit there with the Lexus SUV, except for Michael Proctor, correct?
There were other investigators from the Norfolk District Attorney's Office present that morning.
In any case, you had no personal knowledge prior to your arrival of how long Michael Proctor had been with that SUV before you got there, correct?
That's right.
You have no personal knowledge about whether anyone was monitoring Michael Proctor while he was near the vehicle before you got there.
That's correct.
And before you got there, you had no idea how much access Michael Proctor had to that vehicle, right?
Correct.
Your assignment was to take photographs and to process the passenger's compartment in particular for fingerprints.
Correct.
And you did that.
Yes, I did.
Bless you. About a year and a half after that, on July 18th of 2023, you participated in this investigation again, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And that was because, in part, you had now joined the Norfolk CPAC unit, correct?
Correct.
And you participated in an interview of Colin Albert at the Norfolk DA's office, right?
That's right.
You knew at the time that Colin Albert was the nephew of the homeowner, Brian Albert?
Objection.
Oh, see?
I'll allow that. Did you know that at the time?
Could you rephrase the question?
Sure. At the time that you were called in for this interview and told that you would be participating in an interview of Colin Albert, you knew that he was Brian Albert's nephew, correct?
I was advised that prior to the interview, yes.
You conducted that interview along with Michael Proctor, correct?
Correct.
At the time, Michael Proctor was a state trooper in that unit, correct?
Yes, he was.
And you knew he was also the lead investigator on the case, correct?
He was the case officer, yes.
At the time of that interview on July 18th, before you began questioning of Colin Albert, had Michael Proctor revealed to you his connections with the Albert family?
Objection.
Sustained.
There you go. You got to keep the Alberts protected. What's going on with you, Judge, and the Alberts? Why are you so zealously protecting the Alberts from being questioned in this case?
Will you approach?
Good.
Go on to the next area. and see if
No,
you
no,
can
no.
do that.
No, you're going to take things out of order because you don't want the Alberts' name being mentioned this many times. The prosecutor already objected to Colin Albert. Colin Albert, keep in mind, was a prosecution witness in the last case. This witness, they're not going to dare call him because that's the guy with the bloody knuckles. So that was in the house, and they try to make it look like he was out of the house before 12:10, so there's no way he could be a suspect. But this here, the defense attorney is standing up, and she wants to have a sidebar. So she's just trying to, again, cut him off the knees from going down proper line of questioning that's constitutionally required.
Did Michael Proctor reveal to you that
Yeah, see, I would have, if the judge says you need to move on, you can't ask that line of question, you can do it later, I would ask for a sidebar. You're just getting pushed around here, defense, in my opinion. That's what I'd be doing if this was in Texas.
he and Kevin Albert had socialized together by drinking alcohol in his cruiser?
Sustained in jurors, I'm going to ask you to strike that question.
Yep.
Disregard.
Look at that. They're talking about,
The next area, and see if you can come back.
it's just,
Did
the joke
Michael
of a court.
Proctor reveal to you that he and Kevin Albert had socialized together by drinking alcohol in his cruiser?
Sustained in jurors, I'm going to ask you to strike that question.
Yeah, you want to protect the cops. The cops, you're on the side of the cops. You're not a neutral, detached judge by your rulings and actions and demeanor.
Disregard.
I need to be heard at sidebar.
Good.
I will hear you.
Good. Don't take this anymore. Get it on the record. Look at this circus of a court. You can't even get forward on witness testimony and cross-examination. Just blocking after blocking after blocking. You can't get questions out. Witnesses are shut down. It's just a complete disgrace. I wish I wasn't watching this right now because it's that bad, but I think also the public needs to understand this is not acceptable conduct. This is not justice in America, okay? This is extreme, prejudicial, disgraceful conduct that's supposed to represent justice. There is no justice here when you have this kind of a trampling of the truth coming out. Look how much time this has taken. Wasting time. Wasting all kinds of time just to get Leo,
Sir,
my
when
cat's
you
upset
went
now.
with
Wondering why I'm
Michael
raising my
Proctor
voice. Sorry, Leo.
to interview Colin Albert,
Wait,
you knew that
it's a bad judge.
the case originated on January 29th of
My voice
2022,
I was aware of that.
and the date that you conducted that interview was July 18th of 2023.
That's correct.
Did you ever ask Michael Proctor why he waited a year and a half to interview Colin Albert?
I did not.
Once that interview was concluded, one of the two of you had to write a report to document what Colin Albert had told you, correct?
That's correct.
And Michael Proctor, as the lead investigator, was the one to write the report, correct?
Michael Proctor wrote that report.
You did not write it.
Correct.
He chose the language to use in that report, correct?
Correct.
And you weren't standing over him while he was typing it up, correct?
Correct.
And he wrote that report to his supervisor without running every word by you, correct?
That's correct.
Did you ever review that report to check whether it was accurate?
Not before it was published.
And the only other thing I have for you, sir, is you were called to photograph evidence on February 1st. Were you ever asked to go to 34 Fairview Road on February 8th to photograph and document evidence supposedly found on that day?
No, I was not.
Were you ever asked to go to 34 Fairview Road to document any evidence on February 10th?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't.
How about February 11th?
No, sir.
And then on February 18th, nearly 3 weeks after January 29th, did anybody contact you to ask you to come out and photograph and document evidence that was supposedly found 3 weeks later?
Ask it differently, Ms.
Yes.
Giannetti.
Were you called out to 34 Fairview Road on February 18th of 2022 to photograph and document anything?
February 1st was the only date I was called to 34 Fairview, sir.
So the answer to my question is no, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any follow-up, Mr. Lally?
No redirection.
Sorry?
No redirection.
Okay. All right. You're all set.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, folks.
Well, if anything, the jury can pick up that there's some hot button topics. This judge will just jump on, and these are names that are running recurrently through this case, especially the Alberts. So it looks like there's something that's a strong connection with this judge and the Alberts. So even though she objected to that, we also heard about Proctor drinking alcohol with one of the Alberts. So there's a connection there. So it's unreal. All right, let's jump ahead then. Next, we had Sergeant Evan Brent. And Evan Brent, he went to 34 Fairview on February 3rd at 9:45 a.m. And he also went to 1 Meadows Avenue, documented the Chevy Traverse that John owned, the camera above the garage. He saw no damage to the Traverse. And there's comments I saw today about Jen McCabe. It said that there was a auto repair guy there like the morning after. I don't recall that happening, but if you all have any recall of that, if you want to mention here in the comments. So let me go ahead to this guy's not lasting long here on the witness stand. Direct starts at 3:14 and his cross starts at 3:28. Sorry. Lally was.
Good morning, Chief.
Morning, sir.
Direct questioner for the government.
To be clear, the Chevy Traverse that you photographed at One Meadows, you did so on February 3rd of 2022, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you realized at the time that was 5 days prior to the incident in question, which was January 29th of 2022?
5 days after, not prior.
Did I say prior?
You did.
Thank you for correcting me because you're right. You were photographing it 5 days after January 29th, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it's fair to say, sir, that your earliest involvement in the case was February 3rd of 2022, correct?
Yes, sir.
So you don't know, and you didn't know at the time who had access to that Traverse during those 5 days, correct?
That is correct.
Now, as of February 3rd of 2022, you, I believe, testified you were part of the crime scene services section of the Massachusetts State Police, correct?
Yes, sir.
You met former Trooper Michael Proctor on February 3rd at 34 Fairview Road in Canton.
Yes, I did.
At the time, did you know you were at the home of a Boston police officer named Brian Albert?
I did not.
And February 3rd was the first and only time that you responded to 34 Fairview Road, correct?
That is correct.
With regard to anything that you saw on the lawn or on the snow that day, you have no personal knowledge as to how any of those items got there, correct?
I do not.
And 5 days after January 29th, you had no personal knowledge at the time of who had access to that front lawn during those 5 days, correct?
That is correct.
You had no information that a guard had ever been posted near that lawn?
Not that I'm aware of.
And when you got there, there was no crime scene tape, correct?
No, there was not.
There was no tent?
No.
Other than the police officers standing there.
He's got to be sitting there and thinking, yeah, I know how messed up this so-called crime scene was preserved. And if he goes there and nobody's there, then obviously they've breached minimum standards of crime scene protection.
There on February 3rd, the lawn was open to anyone who wanted to look at it, just like any other lawn in the street, right?
I'm unaware of that. I don't.
Well, you would know that because there are not any law enforcement there standing guard for the Massachusetts State Police. Canton Police Department is conflicted from that, and they're not supposed to go there. Of course, we know their chief drove by there to find more plastic parts, but from the taillight. So anyway, this guy.
Don't know.
Now, in terms of your actions that day in documenting the scene with photographs, you did not write a report on what you saw and what you photographed, correct?
I took notes of what I saw and what I photographed.
Michael Proctor was the one to write the report in which he reported that you were the photographer on scene, correct?
I don't know what Michael Proctor did for a report, so I can't testify to that.
Okay, but you didn't write a report.
I wrote a report of what I did, showing up at the scene and taking photos and then submitting those photos to the Norfolk County Detectives Unit.
You knew at the time that Michael Proctor was the lead investigator on the case, correct?
Yes, I did.
And with regard to other dates in February, on February 8th of 2022, were you asked to go back to 34 Fairview Road to document and photograph anything found on that day?
I do not believe so, no.
What about February 10th,
No.
February 11th?
Again, my only involvement was on February 3rd.
So that means that on February 18th, nearly 3 weeks after January 29th, you were not asked to go back to 34 Fairview to document or photograph anything on the lawn that day, correct?
Correct.
I have nothing further, sir. Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Lally?
So they call these two quick witnesses, these sergeants, yet they haven't even called Proctor yet, the lead detective on the case, the lead trooper on the case. Unbelievable. Again, it's hiding the ball, smoke and mirrors.
Very briefly.
Okay.
Yeah, so apparently somebody was out repairing John's car, so it didn't look like there was any damage from Karen bumping into him. Is that what the gist of this is?
Just for clarity, Trooper Brent, you did write a report in relation to your response documentation on February 3rd, 2022, correct?
That is correct.
And you mentioned that you also took notes, is that correct?
That is correct.
And what did those notes entail?
It detailed several items that were collected, my response times, and who else was there on scene.
Yeah, this guy seems
Now-
embarrassed. I think he knows his whole agency, the Massachusetts State Police, is in basically reputation shambles right now, as well as their judiciary system.
When you were there on scene, as far as 34 Fairview on February 3rd, what did you observe as far as these, you mentioned that the weather had gotten warmer, some snow had melted. What did you observe specifically as far as the snow accumulation on that front lawn area in the area of the flagpole of 34 Fairview?
Objection beyond the scope.
Sustained.
Oh, she said it twice. Sustained. She's that much eagerly to pounce on this line of questioning. Oh, wait, hold on a minute. I strike that. I forgot. This is the redirect. Okay. Finally, she does a sustain for the fence. I take that back. All right, let me jump ahead here. We got to Maureen Hartnett.
Yes, I did.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So let's just see
You
her
can sit or
introduce
stand wherever
herself.
you're comfortable. Just please keep your voice up, okay?
Yes.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury and offer a spelling of your last name?
My name is Maureen Hartnett, Hartnett.
Could you tell us where you presently work?
I work at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
Before you began working at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory, did you receive any education, any further schooling after high school?
Yes, I did.
Could you share that with us?
I have a bachelor's degree in biology from Bridgewater State University and a master's degree in forensic science from the University of New Haven.
Okay, so her cross starts at 5:59. We're at 3:40. And she's crossed by Robert Alessi.
Thank you for that opportunity, Your Honor. And if I could, please, I'll leave these here. These are all going to be published with Your Honor's permission, but obviously the witness.
He goes up here and he's introducing some exhibits
Thank you, Your
first.
Honor.
So he gets started a couple minutes later. Here we go.
February 1st, 2022 by. Good afternoon, Ms. Hartman.
Good afternoon.
Is it acceptable to you for me to refer to you as Ms. Hartnett?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
You were dispatched to the Sally Port at the Canton Police Department on February 1st, 2022 by former Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You understood.
I would hope so. If these jurors have any sense of intelligence and understanding of when somebody's trying to gaslight them, then they should be seeing exactly what's going on here.
At that time that Michael Proctor was the lead detective, the person who was in control of the investigation?
Yes, that's what I was informed of when I arrived.
While you were there, one of the things that you did initially was to conduct an overview of the vehicle meaning the black Lexus SUV that you talked about extensively on direct, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That was important to you, given the limited information that you had at the time about what was contended to be a potential motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That is something that I would do in any type of exam where I'm looking at a vehicle. I look at the overall vehicle.
So you were looking for anything possible that would rise to the level of investigative concern regarding that vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you're familiar with the parlance investigative concern, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's why you noted various items, for example, scratches on the vehicle.
Yes.
You didn't draw any conclusions as to where those scratches came from, though, did you?
No, I did not.
The dent that you noted and photographed that you discussed on your direct examination, you likewise made no conclusion as to the source or cause of that dent, correct?
That's correct.
And you did therefore not make any or draw any conclusions as to whether that dent was caused by any motor vehicle or pedestrian accident, correct?
Correct.
You're a forensic scientist too for the Massachusetts State Police Department, as I understand it?
Yes.
With regard to the taillight that you spoke about rather extensively on your direct examination, you likewise were not able to, and you make no conclusions as to the cause of that broken taillight, correct?
That's correct.
And you draw, therefore, no conclusions with regard to whether that taillight became in the condition that was discussed on direct examination pursuant to any alleged motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
Correct.
The dent, the scratches, the broken taillight on the Lexus, to your knowledge, as you sit here today, could have existed before February 1st, 2022, when you went to Sallyport, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And to your knowledge, the dent, the scratches, the broken taillight could have existed before January 29th of 2022, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You also looked
How about after January 29th at 4 something in the afternoon, 4 or 5 in the afternoon when they came and got it?
for, as you stated, tissue, blood, biological material, and things of that nature on the vehicle, correct?
Yes, I did.
In that inspection of the vehicle, you didn't see any visible stains or tissue on the vehicle, did you?
No, I did not.
You were told, Ms. Hart, that there were wounds on the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And at the time you went to the Sallyport on February
I'm back. Oh, hold on.
Was the wounds on the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe as depicted in Exhibit 1, correct?
That is not a type of analysis I would perform.
So the answer to that question is no, you.
Sorry, I somehow flipped my mouse upside down and I went off of StreamYard and I didn't realize everything was not put back together. So I apologize last couple minutes. Let me
Who
continue on here.
cannot state that you observed anything on the vehicle that would cause those wounds to the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
Sustain.
We can now take that down, Your Honor. Thank you. Did you look toward the top of the lift gate of the Lexus vehicle when you were at the Sallyport Canton Police Department on February 1st of 2022?
Are you referring to the exterior or the interior?
Exterior.
I don't recall specifically looking at that area. I did an overall examination of the vehicle, with exception to the actual roof of the vehicle. So I don't remember specifically looking at that area.
So as you sit here today, there is nothing notable with regard to that area of the vehicle, correct?
I had nothing in my notes regarding that area, no.
And as you sit here today, there's nothing you're recalling that is notable about the tap part around the lift gate of the back of the SUV, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, Alessia, keep in mind, he's not getting paid to do this. He's volunteering to do this. He's from a global law firm, and he believes so much in this case that he's going forward and doing this and spending many, many hours and weeks and months on this case to help Karen Reed. So that really speaks a lot about what kind of high character he has. He's also like an Eagle Scout when he was growing up. So this guy's totally squared away, as we say in the military, and he just has that confidence and character, and he has the ability to really grab the jury's attention when he's talking. So that's why I'm thinking he'd be great for closing if they're not going to have Jackson do it.
Did anyone ask you to examine that area?
Not that area specifically, no.
Do you understand what I will refer to as the undercarriage of the vehicle?
Yes.
And what, just for the jury's better understanding, what are you referring to when you refer to the undercarriage of the vehicle? I know it may be common sense, but just to be clear.
What I understand the undercarriage to be, where if I was laying underneath the car, what I would be looking at, it include the muffler, various pipes, but that's the extent of my knowledge of vehicles.
So if we're talking about the back of
That's true.
the vehicle, and if we go sort of top to bottom, top where we were talking about the lift gate going all the way down, and then go to the bumper, and then go under the bumper, and where it curls under the bumper, then with the bumper and underneath and more a little toward the front, is that what you're referring to as the undercarriage?
Yes, just the general area underneath the vehicle, extending from under the bumper to the front of the vehicle.
Right, so the undercarriage is not merely from the back, but it's underneath all the way toward the front of the vehicle, correct?
Yes,
And
that's
you
correct.
refer to all, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So all that area you refer to as the undercarriage.
Yes.
Did you notice anything of note in the undercarriage, as you just described it, of the vehicle?
No, I did not.
There's nothing usual about the undercarriage. There's no blood. There's no blood anywhere on the back of that vehicle.
And as regards sampling that you discussed on your direct examination, did you take any samples of that undercarriage area of the vehicle?
I did not collect anything from the undercarriage, no.
And is the reason you didn't collect anything because you didn't see anything of note that was worthy of collection?
In addition to that, I also performed some testing of that area.
And what testing of that area did you perform?
I performed screening tests on some of the lower lying areas of the undercarriage, on the tire flaps, the edge of the bumper, the muffler pipe.
And what were the results of that testing, that screening testing?
Those results were negative.
Yeah, no, you can only have one lawyer at closing. So even if there's a rebuttal session, I've never seen it anywhere in the United States where you can have two lawyers tag teaming on a closing.
Negative for what?
It was a screening test for the possible presence of blood.
So on the entire undercarriage, from where we started in the very back, all the way underneath, all the way up to the front, the screening test came back negative for any blood or other biological material or anything else of note.
Yeah, this garbage case, I agree with Duty Ron. This hot mess, lack of an investigation. They're sending stuff up to a crime lab, and they don't have a chain of custody. They just create one when they're sending it to the lab here. Nothing's done to standards here of American criminal justice.
Note that would be part of that screening test.
So I did not perform a screening test on the entire undercarriage. I just performed the screening test on the lower lying areas, and those were all negative. And there was also no visible staining in that area, so that is correct.
What I'd like to do now is to talk about sort of overall what we just discussed. So you discussed certain damage to the vehicle. You had no way on February 1st, and you have no way today of knowing whether any or all of that damage was pre-existing before January 29th of 2022, correct?
That's correct.
So it's possible that all the damage that you've discussed could have existed before January 29th of 2022.
Yes, that's possible.
Are you aware of the odometer reading of the Lexus when it was in the Sallyport garage?
No, I'm not.
If we showed you a document in evidence that would have that on the mileage on the odometer, might that refresh your recollection as to what the mileage was?
That's not something I made a note of or even observed on the day that I was looking at the vehicle.
Okay, so
this is...
you were there with Trooper Clark on February 1st, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Are you aware of whether Trooper Clark observed and took a picture of the odometer? Are you aware if that happened?
I'm not aware of that specific picture.
The mileage on the vehicle was of no interest to you in your inspection as a forensic scientist too?
So my role as a forensic scientist too is to look for potential biological fluids and trace materials on an item. The mileage would not be something that I have ever made note of in any of my examinations of the vehicle.
So but you do analyze damage, correct?
I perform damage analysis on textiles and softer materials, not on vehicles.
But you performed the damage analysis on this vehicle, correct?
No, that's not correct.
So you observed damage on this vehicle, correct?
Yes,
But although you observed damage for your role, your position is that the mileage is of not of interest regarding your role. If I got that correct?
correct.
Thank you.
His dogs might have had dog hair on them. You don't want to collect those.
Moving on to another category, you spoke on direct examination about solo cups and 6 solo cups, and there were depictions put on the screen. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
So on February 1st, in addition to taking some swabs from the vehicle, you also mentioned that you took swabs of, as I recall it, frozen red-brown stains located inside the red solo cups?
Yes, that's correct.
Other than in this case, did you ever have to take swabs of red stained material from solo cups that people usually use for other purposes?
I've never performed a collection like that, no.
So this is the first time you ever performed a collection like that, correct?
I mean, the collection process itself is standard, applying the sterile water to the swabs and putting it in
Yeah, but how do you seal the top of the cups?
a potential stain of interest.
How do you know the cups weren't contaminated, used cups?
However, no, I've never collected a sample from a red solo cup before.
Have you ever taken a sample from a red solo cup since that February 1st?
No, I've not.
Doesn't seem fazed by it.
How many swabs did you take with regard to the red solo cups?
I took 2 swabs.
How did you choose which of the 6 solo cups that you were going to take? And I understand you took 2. Did you take 2 swabs?
2 swabs, but they were considered the same sample. They were taken from the same cup, same stain.
That was what I wanted to get at, is you took 2 swabs, but they were from the same solo cup.
That's correct.
Do you recall how you chose which solo cup you were going to take the swab from?
I don't recall.
Could that be of significance, which one you chose and why?
In this particular case, I do not believe it's significant at the time.
Did you confer with anybody as to what might be the best solo cup from which to take the swab?
I did receive information about where those solo cups were collected from, which helped me in making that decision.
But she comes to court not prepared to testify which one she selected. Why wouldn't you test all of them? This was a murder case and you don't have the initiative to test everything, leave no stone unturned.
As a forensic scientist too, you're aware that blood stains can contain, and these red-brown stains here, could contain multiple contributors, correct?
In some instances, that is correct.
What's a multiple contributor?
A multiple contributor, I believe the term more used in the DNA unit. However, having many contributors to a particular stain just mean there may be multiple sources of that biological material.
Do you know which red-brown stains that are contended to be found at the scene relate to which solo cup in the bag that these solo cups were in?
The information I had at the time were that these were collected from a same single stained area from
Period.
beneath the victim.
But you don't have personal knowledge of that, correct?
No, that's correct. I was not present at the scene at 34 Fairview.
If the swabs were taken from multiple stains, you would have no way of knowing whether the swabs were taken from the same stain, correct?
Can you rephrase that, please?
Sure. If the swabs were taken from multiple stains, you wouldn't know where the swabs in particular came from?
So are you speaking of the swabs that I took?
Yes.
So the swabs that I took, I know came from one of those 6 cups. And I was informed that those 6 cups of red-brown stains came from a single stained area underneath the victim.
That information you just spoke about, was it put in any note that you read?
It was something that I had in my notes.
Did anybody else convey that information to you at the Sally Port?
Keep in mind, they didn't investigate and test the clothing of John O'Keefe till about 18 months into this case. 18 months later, that's how long they sat on this.
I got that from an officer on scene at the Sally Port, but I do not recall which officer relayed that to me.
So it was verbal information you got from
That is correct.
person. Did that person show you any note or chain of custody or other document to support his or her statement in that regard?
No, they did not.
Ultimately, once you did take those swabs from a single solo cup, what did you do with the rest of the evidence in the cup?
That evidence was left with the Canton PD.
So you left the rest of the brown stained blood evidence from the solo cups with the Canton PD. You didn't take it back with you to your officer lab.
Correct.
DNA testing was not done on those swabs, was it?
I don't believe it was. No testing was done on those swabs.
So as we all sit here
No testing
today,
on the swabs.
there has been no confirmation of whose blood those swabs relate to, correct?
At this time, those were not tested for blood at all, so I couldn't confirm that they're blood, and no additional testing was done. That is correct.
So therefore, we don't know any person or persons they might relate to.
That is correct.
Unreal.
And thus, we don't know if there were multiple contributors to those stains.
Objection.
Oh,
Sustained.
Sustain? You're going to sustain that objection on a critical line of questioning like this? So you swab it,
You
test it. What's the point of swabbing?
testified that the remainder of the contents of the solo cup that you swabbed from, as well as the other 5 solo cups, were retained at the Canton Police Department, as you know, before you left. And that investigation, as you said at the time, was being headed up by former Trooper Proctor, correct?
That is correct.
Michael Proctor was at the Canton Police Department Sally Port location at the time you were performing your work on February 1st, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Solo Cups is the brand name. I think every American knows what a Solo Cup is. They're very popular here. They're red plastic cups. The insides of them are white. Normally they're red. I think you can get other colors, maybe seasonal type colors and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, they're like about 16 ounces. So, and they're disposable, recyclable. So people buy them and then throw them out after they have a gathering or family over.
Canton police officer. I handed them to a Canton police officer.
Might Michael Proctor have taken control of those solo cups?
To my knowledge, it was a Canton police officer at that time. I don't know what happened to them after they were turned over to the Canton PD.
Canton PD? They were conflicted, so they shouldn't be doing that. They knew about the conflict from the get-go, and Proctor was conflicted.
Why is it that you believe a Canton police officer had control over those cups rather than former Trooper Proctor?
Just from my actual memory, I remember training them. They had collected the frozen red brown stains in the cups, so it was technically their evidence. I took the sample I needed from them, so I just returned it to the officer who had presented them to me.
So therefore, after you presented them, you don't know who took control of those cups. Is that a fair conclusion?
Yes, that's correct. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay. My question probably wasn't all that clear. Ultimately, during your work and inspection of the vehicle, the SUV, the right rear taillight housing was removed as you testified to on direct examination, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you testified that a Canton police officer sort of helped you with the last stage of the removal of that taillight?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you know whether that officer was wearing, do you have a distinct recollection that that officer was wearing any special protective gloves?
I only know because I have seen the videos recently that he was wearing gloves.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your answer.
I only know that he was wearing gloves because I have recently seen the video. I do not have a firsthand memory of that.
You said you recently saw a video. When was that?
Monday.
And what was
Maybe, I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. What day is today? I saw it Thursday, excuse me.
And what was the circumstances under which you were reviewing a video?
I had just recently found out there was video, and it's just something I wanted to see in case I was shown it on the stand so I knew what it consisted of. I hadn't seen it prior to last Thursday.
Did you testify to that on your direct and I missed it, or did it not come up? Reviewing a video.
I'm sorry, yes, I believe I was asked if I had seen the video, and yes, I had.
Okay, thank you. Now back to the tail light. Mr. Woke, if we could have Exhibit 145 published.
Okay.
With your honor.
Yeah, they've not brought a medical examiner to declare him dead, so they really haven't. They talk about him being dead at the scene and stuff like that, but there's not any official pronouncement of him legally being dead yet that I've seen.
There's permission. Thank you. We have up on...
Hey, folks, if you have questions or comments, please don't use all caps. It's really harder to read. Thank you.
The screens, and I know you went through this on direct, so I'm going to shortcut it. This is the tail light at the lab that you were talking about on direct, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's the tail light housing that you submitted to the lab that you had obtained from the Sallyport garage, right?
Yes, correct.
And just to cover quickly some basics, there was one swab taken that you mentioned on direct of that tail light.
Yes.
And you testified, if I remember correctly, on direct that you, well, it's better for you just, if you could with a pointer, is just show the areas you covered with that one swab.
So I collected the swab from any of the, what would have been exposed areas of the taillight when the taillight was intact.
And if you could please just give like a perimeter full, I know it's not a circle, but whatever it is, just full perimeter so the jury can see the entire area that you swabbed.
Sure. It was.
Look at how clean that is. Yeah, there is no salty smudginess to it. You go through a storm like that, it's being hauled on that truck. And I can tell you, whatever they put on the roads to get rid of this ice, de-icing and stuff, that'd be all smeared all over Kieran's car. So this would be completely filthy here. But look, it looks like it went through car wash.
This upper right-hand red area, this portion down here, I believe it's red. And then there's also a portion of clear area in the front here that
My understanding is they never did a DNA test for dog.
was swabbed. And that was all contained on a single swab.
Matter.
Thank you very much. So I want to keep this up if I could, Your Honor, but we can have the lights back on if that's acceptable. Just, so, thank you. In terms of the swabbing, you did not swab, therefore, any other area of that taillight, correct? Including the area to the left of where you just drew the circle, if you will, around, correct?
I would just say it's difficult from this picture to see if there's what would have been exposed when the may I finish? I'm sorry. I don't know specifically on the left from this picture if there's anything that would have been there prior to the damage. If there was an external area, it would have been included in my collection. So I just didn't include any of the internal components of the taillight. So if I'm missing a piece over there that would have been on the exterior, then I apologize. I just can't see it in the picture if it's there.
Let's just assume my discussion and my questions. You don't have to assume this. My questions are just with regard to the inside of the taillight, because you've very nicely governed and talked about the outside of the taillight as you described it, where you swab. Now I want to go to the areas that you didn't swab.
Okay.
Whatever you best can do to describe the areas of the taillight that you did not swab.
Okay.
And if you could use the laser pointer, if that
Sure.
helped you.
So I did not swab the internal areas of the taillight. So here where the light bulb would have been, or down here where it's gray.
And focusing on the more, is it okay to call it the inside part of the taillight? Is that acceptable?
Okay.
So the inside of the taillight, to be clear, you didn't swab that area.
No, I did not.
Why would you leave parts unswabbed? Every area that should be swabbed.
In terms of where you did swab, given that you swabbed with one swab the entire area, you are not able to say precisely where any DNA might have come from?
Unbelievable.
Just that it would have been present if there was DNA present on that swab. It would have.
This would be thrown out of any DA's office. You did what to preserve the crime scene? You process it how? No chain of custody. And then you have it up at the lab. The lab just basically takes one swab to test 6 different items or to cover the whole big back tail light like that. It just is like unbelievable. You got to be, this can't be serious.
Would have come from the external exposed area of the taillight should the taillight have been intact.
But again, on the inside, because you didn't swab the inside, you had no evidence of DNA on the inside of the taillight, correct?
Correct. I did not swab the inside.
With regard to the, what we'll call the outside where you did swab as opposed to the inside where you didn't, you cannot define whether the DNA was to the upper right, to the outside of the taillight lens, or some other place in that area, correct?
No, I wouldn't be able to narrow down where on the external front. I mean, I didn't swab anything in the back that was attached to the vehicle. So anything in the external front, I would not be able to narrow down any further where, if any biological material was present, where it was recovered from, specifically on the external area.
You did not find any glass on the inside of the taillight, did you?
Are you referring to like loose pieces?
Any kind of glass at all?
I did not note anything unusual inside the taillight.
I'm speaking, thank you for that answer. I am speaking specifically about glass. You didn't find any glass on the inside of that taillight when you were at Sallyport for your entire inspection on February 1st, 2022, correct?
I'm just want to make sure that I understand your question. I didn't find anything that was not inherent to the taillight inside. I don't know what the taillight's made out of. So if there's a portion on the inside that's made out of glass, it may have been there. I didn't see anything that was out of place on the interior of the taillight.
So using your terms inherent, you mean by that something could have been on the inside of that taillight that was part of the taillight that could have been glass. But other than that, there's no what scientists call exogenous or outside glass or glass that doesn't belong.
There's a scientist part of Alessi coming out, exogenous, so something external to the lens housing.
As part of the taillight, correct?
I'm hesitant to answer that specific question. I don't perform glass analysis, so I just perform collection. So if there was something that apparently looked like glass that had been loose inside, is that's what you're referring to, I can answer that question. But I can't say specifically whether a material is glass.
I understand. My question is a basic one.
Okay.
Which is, you found no glass that would not be associated. Let me strike that. Did you ever observe in this taillight any glass as part of the taillight that's part of the taillight? Anything glass that you?
Yes, they can retry her again, unfortunately. Yeah, she doesn't know what an assembly of a vehicle is like nowadays, where it's all plastic and hardly any metal whatsoever, and surely nothing's glass, not even the bulbs now. They don't use regular screw-in bulbs that are made out of glass. Everything's like LED, so there's no glass involved whatsoever.
Again, I can't make the distinction on a material being glass, so I think the premise of the question I'm having difficulty answering.
Okay, so last part of the questioning, you didn't make any note that said you found glass inside of that taillight, correct?
I wouldn't make a note that something is glass inside a taillight because I can't draw a conclusion to what a material is, because that's just not part of the analysis I do.
And to wrap this part up, and then we can move on from this item, you didn't find any DNA on the inside of that taillight.
My analysis would not include DNA analysis because that is a different unit. So I can't answer that question.
To your knowledge, as you sit here today, is there any information from anybody that says that there's any DNA in that taillight?
I have no information of that.
Thank you. So what I want to do now is, if we can take that down, Mr. Wolk, I want to move on to what is sometimes referred to as touch DNA. I know you're familiar with that concept, right, Ms. Hartnett?
Yes, that's correct.
And what is, for the jurors' understanding, what is touch DNA?
When skin comes into contact with an item, potentially skin cells can be left behind, which is commonly referred to as touch DNA, when in essence it's these skin cells from the person being transferred to another object or item.
So is this a fair example that if I walk by the podium and brush my hand against it like that, I could very well leave touch DNA on that podium for what I just did? Objection.
Sustained without more of a foundation from this witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. So is it possible for me, as I'm sitting here talking, based upon your knowledge, to leave touch DNA on this podium?
Same.
Yeah, thank you.
So you're trying to object and basically have your lab so-called expert not be able to talk about how they collect DNA, where they're looking for it, what causes DNA to be left behind, or how it's left behind?
Your Honor, Are you familiar with the process by which a person can leave touch DNA on the surface?
Yes, I commonly defer to biological material because that is what my expertise is in. Skin cells can be transferred to an item, and skin cells can potentially provide DNA.
So do hands, palms of hands, produce skin cells?
Yes, they are made of skin cells,
And
correct.
if a hand is on, for example, a podium, can there be a transfer of skin cells to the podium?
Yes, there can be.
And therefore, can the hands on a podium that have skin cells transfer DNA?
Yes, again, I'm not a DNA expert, but generally that would be the source, would be skin cells. Could be, yes.
You also indicated that you collected apparent glass from the rear bumper of the Lexus, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you use the term apparent glass, as I understand forensic science, because at the time you're not really sure what it is, right? So you use the word apparent glass, and you can't take away the apparent until there's a confirmation that it is glass, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And on your direct examination, you went through a discussion, so I'm going to shortcut it a little bit, about apparent glass that you located on the rear bumper of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, with your permission, can we publish Exhibit 141, which is in evidence?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf? Ms. Hartnett, I'm showing you what is Exhibit 141 in evidence. And I know you know this, and I know it's been discussed. Could you just give a brief summary of what is depicted in Exhibit 141?
This is a close-up of the right rear area of the bumper where I noted the pieces of apparent glass.
And you remember discussing this on your direct examination?
Yes.
Now, I just want to cover some basics with regard that weren't covered on the direct examination. You're a
So instead of being photographed where the law enforcement folks first found the vehicle, which is at Karen's parents' house in their driveway, they wait to photograph it after they bring it all the way to Canton Police Department and has been there a while.
a specially trained person, and that's how you get your forensic scientist to title, correct?
Yes, it means that I've gone through all of the training within the lab.
And all that training and all of those procedures are important and necessary because the collection of evidence is important, correct?
That is one of the reasons, correct?
And if those protocols aren't followed, then that can lead to incorrect conclusions, correct?
Depending on what portion of the protocol isn't followed, but yes, it's
But
possible.
certainly, at a minimum, it increases the risk for an incorrect conclusion or observation, correct?
Again, it depends on what part of the protocol isn't followed, but it's possible.
I assume it's therefore important to you that the protocols are followed so that the best result and the best collection and therefore the best analysis occurs, correct?
I make every effort to follow the protocols.
Is the quantity of the material you observe and collect also relevant, perhaps not to you, but to other persons in the investigation?
Yes, it can be.
And therefore, it's important not only to get the type of material correct, but to get the quantity correct.
In some instances, yes.
And with regard to your work on this vehicle on February 1st, do you recall discussing the collection, the observations you made with regard to the rear bumper?
I'm sorry, can you ask that question again,
Sure.
please?
On direct examination, you talked about glass on the rear bumper, correct?
Yes, apparent
You
glass.
talked about what you observed, you talked about what you put a sticker on, you talked about what you collected, you talked about the transport of it, correct?
That is correct.
And you put it in your notes and you talked about it on direct examination, I assume because it was an important part of the work that you did.
Yes, it was a piece of evidence that I collected, correct.
And therefore, it's important for you to have made correct observations and to make correct collection, right?
Correct.
With your honor's permission, if we could publish Exhibit 133. If I could have a moment with Mr. Woke just to do this efficiently, Your Honor? Thank you. If Mr. Woke, you could zoom in on the stickers, right? So, Ms. Hartnett, on your
Check
direct
this out.
examination, you stated that there were 2 stickers and that there were therefore glass associated with each sticker, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So 2 stickers and glass associated with each sticker, correct?
Yes, correct.
So, okay, so let's recap this. So you see those little white stickers are rectangular. One is on the more upper left center of this photo, and there's 2 like little ones on there with a separate break between the 2 ones. And there's another one like that down below here where you see more of the snow or residue, which is part of the residue I'm talking about when you drive along in wintry weather in the United States, where in places where they have snow, and you have cities where they put either salt or they put some kind of chemicals on the ground to help melt the ice faster. So that's what this residue is here. You see on the back white of the bumper. That's why snow would have been melted by now. So that's why it still looks white, because it would stay there all winter, and so until you wash the car, it's going to be dirty like that. And so a lot of that probably is salt as well. And so let's go on to see what he says here. It's pretty interesting how this comes out.
In fact, there's only 1 sticker, and the second sticker is merely a reflection of the first sticker, and therefore you have doubled the amount of glass on bumper. Can you see that? Can you determine that from the photo?
No, can I see the other photo, please?
Yes.
And figure that out.
So if we could, Your Honor, with your permission, go to Exhibit 133.
Okay.
Well, look here, right? The reason you know this is true, and this is a reflection, so the vertical part of the back door, so this would be the vertical lift gate for this SUV, and you can see these horizontal lines spaced about 1 inch apart on the upper part of the bumper where the white snow is, and then you can see the mirror of those same lines matching what is there in the snow, and even the those are basically what do you call it, contours in the plastic of the bumpers to have a sort of a step so you don't slide when you're trying to step in and out of the back of the vehicle. So that's what those are, those sort of those grip treads that are a mirror of that. So you can easily see there's not going to be grip treads on the vertical metal part of the back lift gate. So that's why it's so obvious that there's only 1 sticker there. But right there again, you can see it's a mirror image, because you got even the thicker line where the tread is not standing out, and then you see a gap there. The black line, the solid black line, that's the gap, I would say, between the door and the bumper. So that's why it goes from like a really heavy white residue to a solid black, what looks like a line, but that line is actually just a gap between where the door opens and the door frame.
You asked to see this one. Can you now make a determination, having seen both of them, whether there is in fact just one sticker and therefore one volume of glass associated with it?
No, I cannot.
Oh, wow.
You're saying this is a reflection?
I can't test.
You should know it's just a reflection, ma'am. I mean, you're saying there's a piece of glass stuck on a vertical piece of metal, a little tiny glass fragment stuck on a vertical piece of metal.
Okay.
So I'm asking you. With your honor's permission, if we could go back to the other picture.
Okay.
And if you could zoom in. Do you see a reverse B in that picture?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
I'm sorry, a reverse B as in Bob?
No, could you zoom in on each of the stickers for me, please?
We'll do whatever you would like to do to answer the question. So
Sure. Okay. And then if I could just see the other sticker, please.
Absolutely.
Yes, I believe that is a reverse B, correct?
And doesn't that mean that it's a mere reflection and that there's only one sticker that you put on and therefore only one volume of glass associated with one sticker?
Can you say that question again? I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I will stay by the microphone. Is this microphone picking up? So therefore, can you now conclude, because of the reflection and because of the reverse B, that there is only in actuality, and there was only in actuality, one sticker and one B, and therefore one volume of glass associated with this bumper?
I don't know specifically that it's a reflection. It's not unusual for me to use the same letter on a sticker if I'm going to collect the items of evidence together. So if I had written it, on top or on the bottom of the scale on one of them and on the top of the scale on the other one, that is a possibility. It's difficult for me to tell by this picture. What I can tell you is that
Talk about the lines. The lines show it more than that B. I don't know if you can see the B on the vertical part.
all the items of glass or apparent glass that were present on the bumper were collected together. I can't say specifically by looking at this photo whether I just label two separate areas to make the photo show the pieces better or if it is a reflection. I can't say.
So from what we just went through, you're not able to tell that that is a reflection and therefore a duplication, is that correct?
I'm
Sustained.
Wow. Objection sustained. She says she's not sure, so he just wants to clarify one last time because she's not sure. That's what you do as an attorney. And this is sustained, so it's just they don't want the truth coming out, so that's all it is.
Do you have any doubt whether there is a reflection on the
Just own it.
photo that
Admit
is
it.
on the screen at this moment? Do you have any doubt?
Oh, I would say it could be a possibility, yes.
Right. So you have doubt.
Oh, all right.
Sustained.
So you believe it's a possibility.
Yes, correct.
Is it
Good.
more than a possibility?
Because she sustained the objection and he asked basically the same question again, and the witness got it out. So good.
Sustained.
He already answered it. So what's the point of sustaining an objection?
You would agree that it's important
The witness answered it.
to have the accurate answer to that question, correct?
I think that, yes, obviously, understanding and knowing exactly what I'm looking at is important, but it would not change what I would have collected and how I would have labeled it.
So with regard,
I've never seen evidence collection this bad. This is really incompetent. Utter incompetence.
to what others might do and conclude from that, it could be important to them, correct? Let's go to we can go back to
She didn't even know her own stickers and where she put them. It's obviously not a vertical sticker with glass sticking vertically on the metal siding of the back lift gate, and it's going to last for 60 miles.
None of these pieces of apparent glass were embedded in the bumper, correct?
No, they were resting on the bumper.
So by not being embedded and just resting on the bumper, you therefore did not make a notation that they were embedded in your notes. You just put that they were on the bumper, correct?
That's correct.
And sort of as we're elaborating here, you're elaborating, they were just, as your words, they were just resting on the bumper.
Correct.
If we could, if I may confer with Mr. Wolk on the video, thank you.
Do you need the lights on to do it?
Every single witness. I mean, look at all these witnesses just crashing and burning one by one. The only one that was any way credible was the weatherman, but he's been helping the defense. So the prosecution's still on still at the back of the end zone. They haven't been able to prove anything. They got to go all the way across the football field, if you do that in analogy, to score a touchdown. They're still in the back of their own end zone. Right, Hon?
Thank you for that opportunity, Your Honor. If we could go to Exhibit 124, Mr. Wolk, and with Your Honor's permission, if we could publish it.
44. Let's go back, look at that sticker thing here.
Can you now make a determination, having seen both of them, whether there is in fact just one sticker and therefore one volume of glass associated with it?
I'm trying to find where he talks.
No, I cannot.
The letter B.
You're saying this is a reflection?
I can't testify.
Okay.
So I'm
I wish we would talk about those lines, horizontal lines that go left to right here in the picture. There's not a single car you could find that had these horizontal lines across the sheet metal. I've never seen a car like that ever. Unless you're talking about a light, it's involving a light, and there's clearly no light here.
With Your Honor's permission, if we could go back.
That's a reflection. That's not engraved footholds on vertical sheet metal.
To the other picture.
Okay.
And if you could zoom in. Do you see a reverse B?
We can't see
in that picture.
Here, but
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
I'm sorry, a reverse B as in Bob?
I saw a reverse B or a B on the sticker that was on the bumper, but not the one above it. Anybody see that better?
No, could you zoom in on each of the stickers for me, please?
We'll do whatever you would like to do to answer the question. So,
Sure.
Okay, so the B is like laying on back underneath.
And then if I could just see the other sticker, please.
Absolutely.
Yes, I believe that is a reverse B, correct?
And doesn't that mean that it's a mere reflection and that there's only one sticker that you put on and therefore only one volume of glass associated with one sticker?
Can you say that question again? I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I will stay by the microphone. Is this microphone picking up? So therefore, can you now conclude, because of the reflection and because of the reverse B, that there is only, in
I'm
actuality.
gonna jump ahead. 640 where we're at here.
Thank you for that opportunity, Your Honor. If we could go to Exhibit 124, Mr. Wolk, and with Your
Clearly
Honor's
one
permission, if we could publish it.
Reflected.
Ms. Hartnett, there had been various weather before February 1st in the area. Is that correct? You testified to that somewhat on direct examination.
Yes, that's correct.
And are you able to discern from what is on the screen now that there is some type of precipitation that is on the back window of the lift gate of the vehicle?
Yes.
And is that consistent with what you observed when you were in the Sally Port on February 1st?
I don't believe I observed the precipitation on the back of the vehicle by the time I arrived.
But does this refresh your recollection as to whether there was?
All right, this little troll here. Yes, I have played college football even, so I'm going to zap you permanently. Thank you for showing your true colors.
Was in fact that precipitation on the vehicle at that time?
You know,
Can you ask it differently? So
you notice how all the people that are pro, or I should say anti-Karen Reed, all they resort to is personal attacks. They can't talk about this disastrous botched police job, this all the way through the whole chain of command, all the way through the whole chain of custody. Everything's botched, every single level, including this lab tech. So it's like you couldn't ask for more of a complete hot mess of a case. And what DA's office would take a case like this? They'd drop kick it out of their office so fast. And so for them to present this to trial to a jury, the only way you can get it is if you got it a rigged system here. So no jury's going to buy this unless you get the jury rigged and you got some kind of plan on the jury. There's no way you'd get all 12 people rigged. If you got somebody that's going to try to like hold out on the jury, sort of like we did with that cop that was on the first trial that was selected as a foreman by the judge. So unless you have some kind of thing like that, it's going to cause a mistrial because it won't be unanimous, not guilty. But with this kind of absolute disaster of a case, I mean, this is like so open and shut. It shouldn't even be a case. All right. They need to go back and start over. The feds really need to take this on because these guys are complete incompetent quacks. I've never thought state police of any state in America could be this incompetent and a judge this bad. And you combine the two, and wow, what a disaster nightmare this is. This is so shocking. And you think they have some schools up there in Massachusetts, like Harvard, one of the most highly esteemed universities in the world. They're right down the road from this. They got all kinds of colleges around there. They got Boston University. They got MIT down the road from this. It's not far down the road from Yale as well. So you got all these prestigious institutions, and you have this kind of like nonsense going around.
you need it clearer.
Yes. Do you recall when you were at the Sally Port on February 1st, any precipitation on the rear window of the liftgate of the SUV?
No, I do not recall.
And does this depiction refresh your recollection on that point?
I'll allow that. Does it?
No, I don't recall seeing any precipitation on the vehicle, and I don't know when that photo was taken. So that does not refresh my memory of that instance.
Is there a date of January 29th, 2022 on that photo? We can enlarge it if that would help. And again, this is in evidence. Do you see what is at the bottom of the photo?
I do.
Now, if we could play, with Your Honor's permission, this video. And if we could stop it at certain points, Mr. Wolf, that would be helpful. May we, Your Honor?
Okay.
Thank you.
more emergencies in that town of Canton I've ever seen.
If you could wait, Mr. Wolk, until the sirens pass.
I've never been any city in America or in the world for that matter that has this many sirens going on. I don't care if you live near a police station or are near downtown where there's a police station.
Mr. Wolk, if you can go back just and wait until the sirens pass, please. Thank you. I think they passed. If you could accelerate it just a little bit, Mr. Wolk, without overly accelerating all that's happening. And accelerate.
Sorry, didn't mean to ruin your question, Britt. You're asking how they send evidence to one lab versus a different lab. Well, most state crime labs can handle pretty much 95% of what they come across in violent crime cases, especially murder cases, but sometimes they don't have the specific expertise or skill set. So they may have to send it off to the FBI for assistance to have some of their labs do it. I know one time I worked a murder case in Dallas, and for blood spatter, instead of calling in Texas Rangers or something from the state, they actually called in an independent guy up in Oklahoma that goes around and talks about, he's like one of the foremost authorities on blood spatter. So it's just sort of a process of who they think they need to get to help make the best determination of things. But here it's like they're not even trying to find better experts. Look at, they had Trooper Paul as their expert the first go around, and he was a complete disaster for the prosecution, actually helped the defense as well. So they're going to get somebody else instead of Trooper Paul. I believe this time, I don't think Trooper Paul will be called at all. So anyway, it's basically comes down to how the evidence unfolds and what you think you need to get the best presentation and the best expertise in front of a jury. And if your state folks don't have it, normally state crime labs are going to try to handle all of it. But like I say, if they don't have the expertise in something that's very unique, then like blood spatter experts, you're not going to develop that kind of expertise in a smaller state. They don't have enough murders in Massachusetts where you're going to have, blood spatter expert full-time working for the state lab. So that would be something that would be farmed out. So hopefully that answers your question.
A little bit more. And that's good. And if you could yes, thank you. If we could have the lights on and take that down, please. Can you describe what you just saw?
Whatever the white material was present on the back of the vehicle was falling off
And where was it falling onto?
the ground.
And did it hit anything before the ground? For example, did it hit the bumper before it hit the ground?
I didn't take note of that.
That was on January 29th, 2022. You were at the Sally Port on February 1st, 2022, correct?
That's correct.
So that occurs on January 29. You come to the Sally Port on February 1st, yet there is glass on the bumper on February 1st that, as you have described it, is just perched on the bumper, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you know generally where Dighton, Massachusetts is?
Yes.
Do you know where, and you obviously know where Canton is.
Yes.
How far away would you say Dighton is from Canton?
Time-wise, maybe 30 to 45 minutes.
And therefore, roughly, if someone were to go the speed limit, around 30 minutes away?
Sure.
Not holding you to any exact time, just generally. Your notes indicate that the vehicle was recovered from Dighton, the one we've been talking about, the Lexus, and towed back to Canton and placed in the Sally Port garage at the Canton PD before you started your examination, correct?
That's correct.
And you were made aware before your inspection or examination on February 1st of 2022, that the alleged incident in this case took place in Canton, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you knew you were looking at this vehicle, when you were looking at this vehicle and doing your examination, that the vehicle, by definition, as to what we had just covered, went from Canton to Dighton and then towed back from Dighton back to Canton, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So it ends up back in Canton after that.
Okay, do you have to be smart like this because of her looks? That's why I have her up. I'm going over all the cross-examination portions, so I'm going to put you in timeout. I don't need that kind of talk.
Journey, correct?
Yes, that's where I examined it. Correct.
So, as I understand your notes, the glass pieces that were just perched on the bumper would have traveled about 60 miles before you saw them?
Is that what you're saying?
No.
Well, when do you believe the glass appeared on the bumper, if you know?
I don't know when the apparent glass appeared on the bumper.
So you believe it's possible that the apparent glass appeared on the bumper after January 29, 2022?
Yes.
Sustained.
What? Why can't they be asked?
Do you know?
Must be true because they want to keep it out. So every time they're blocking stuff, you know it's the truth.
The weather conditions that were in the area, we talked about it earlier, you talked about it on direct, in the general time of January 29th of 2022.
Yes, I do.
Do you know when the vehicle took its journey that we talked about, Canton, Dighton, back to Canton? Do you know what day that occurred?
No, I do not.
Would it have, let's assume it was on January 29th, okay?
Yes. Okay.
For purposes of my questioning. Do you know what the weather was, including wind speed, on January 29th?
No, I do not. I know general weather conditions. Sorry.
You knew generally, but not specifically, correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to publish Exhibit 60 in evidence.
Okay.
And if you could go through to the top, Mr. Woke, of the title first. If you could go before that to the very, very top title in the center as to So Ms. Hartnett can see what okay. And then if you could now go down to the part of the document that would show the date and then go from left to right for Ms. Hartnett, please, and the jury. And show which column go up above what the 29 relates to. And if you now then can proceed to the yellow line and go over to and hit the relevant categories. Thank you. So we have a 15.7. If you could now go up vertically as to what that number relates to. And can you highlight what it relates to? And if you could now go down to and go up above 1, just above the average, is to yellow highlight what's above the.
I think none of these witnesses have done anything except they got out the fact that Proctor was the lead investigator. That came out today through one of the witnesses. So that undercuts what the prosecution's been projecting and lying about throughout this trial through other witnesses, that Proctor wasn't the lead investigator. He's a case officer, but if he's a case officer, the terminology may be different, but it means the exact same thing. And they're trying to like trick the jury to think it's not. So anyway, I think that this, I think she's just in over her head. She doesn't realize the significance of something that's so important to be prepared. And she doesn't have really any credibility, I would say. Her credibility is blown. Yet again, another government witness that's credibility is completely blown. I think she's likable. I don't think she's corrupted or anything like that. I think she's just not doing very good at her job on this case anyway. So I find that also for different lab folks, sometimes they try to help too much and they wind up completely causing reversible error. There's been, over the years, I can tell you there's been cases where like labs have bad actors in them. They do stuff and they cover their tracks. They don't admit to lab errors, and people can get convicted as a result. Wrongfully convicted, I should say, because of botched lab work. And so here she's not doing anything except she's showing that once again Hank Brennan is stumbling and fumbling this case.
The column up above average speed. Yes. Okay, if you now can go down to the respective columns at the bottom for January 29th. Do you see those two numbers, Ms. Hartnett?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection at all about the average wind speed and gusts of wind that were occurring on January 29th of 2022?
I have no firsthand knowledge of what the wind speed specifically was in those dates.
So here, this is a good tactic. Everything, this is what I've said before on this channel. What I've done in court is everything my opponent tries to do. When I know I got the truth on my side, it's not a matter of me like being a defense attorney and trying to throw reasonable doubt out there. When I know my client's completely innocent, the states or federal prosecutors are completely botching the case and they're just trying to go railroad an innocent person, then I just look at it as every kind of witness they bring is an opportunity for me to flip the script and turn their evidence against them and use their own evidence against them in their theory. And that's exactly what Alessi's doing here. So he's showing the wind speeds because that's relevant. And he's talking about how this vehicle has been traveling. Karen's vehicle has been traveling, and it came out around 60 miles. We're going to see about 60 miles, I think it was, from the time that it was that it left 34 Fairview. So from 34 Fairview to go to John O'Keefe's place, and then for her to go to her parents' place, then it went from her parents' place all the way to Canton Police Department. So that's like roughly a 60-mile round trip.
So if we could
here to show that really 60 miles an hour, and you got whipping winds on this, and so you're going to have really you're going to have the broken pieces of glass that remain on the vehicle, as well as a hair piece that they're talking about, a single strand of hair that's coming up.
Go back to Mr. Wolk, the exhibit with regard to glass on the bumper of the vehicle. So these are your observations on February 1st. And we've talked about the journey that the vehicle went on. You talked generally about the weather.
So, try and ask a question without too much.
I understand. Understood, Your Honor. Thank you. In your experience as a forensic scientist too, is it possible for glass that is perched on a bumper to travel 60 miles and be subject to average wind speeds of 15.7 and still remain on the bumper?
Objection.
So it's sustained without a proper foundation.
Understood. Have you ever had experience with analyzing glass on any surface, an outdoor surface, and correlating that glass to weather conditions to make a determination as to the likelihood that glass could be or not be in a certain place on a certain date and time? Have you ever done that?
No.
Based upon what you know about this case, just based upon what you know, and from your role as a forensic scientist too only, do you believe that information would be relevant to your role as a forensic scientist too?
Sustained.
Of course it is.
How did you recover the glass? What tool did you use to recover the glass on the bumper?
Tweezers.
How difficult or easy was it for you to take the glass off that bumper with, did you say tweezers?
Yes, that's correct.
How hard or easy was it for you to remove those pieces of glass with tweezers?
It was not difficult.
So it was easy.
Yes, correct.
You can take that down, Mr. Wolf. Thank you. Moving on to another category, Ms. Hartnett. You testified on direct examination that you located an apparent hair on the rear right quarter panel of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And again, we say
here's the hair.
apparent hair for the reasons we've discussed. You didn't know at the time, so you use the word apparent, and you don't take away the apparent until testing confirms it's hair, correct?
Correct.
So the apparent hair was not sitting on the horizontal bumper, but it was on a vertical portion of the panel. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's the quarter panel, right?
Yes.
And that's a smooth surface, right?
Yes.
That hair wasn't secured to that panel,
All
was
the
it?
time.
No.
It in fact wasn't secured in any way on that quarter panel, correct?
That's correct.
But that's how desperate they are to try to pigeonhole different pieces of evidence that common sense tells you it's not a big deal. Yeah, it could be there, but instead they're trying to make it look like, oh my gosh, this proves that she hit him. His hair is there on the side of the quarter panel of the car. Well, for that hair to stay there going that far of a distance in those cold conditions, I think it actually makes it look like he was that they were making efforts to set up Karen. So instead of actually making it look more like Karen must have done something and it hit John with a vehicle, I think it feeds more into this conspiracy notion. It's like, well, how could that one piece of hair stay on that vehicle in these kind of horrific conditions? And the wind blowing like crazy, and just even if there wasn't a wind blowing, just the wind that would have been blowing on the sides of that SUV as it's transported after it's picked up at Karen's parents' house. And Karen wasn't driving that fast when she left 34 Fairview, dropping John off to go back to John's house. So anyway, it's this one little piece of hair, and we have that is something critical that Hank thought he needed to bring into evidence to help nail that conviction, help prove his case. But it's just like so many other things, it's backfiring on him.
It wasn't taped.
He's burying
No.
himself.
It wasn't glued. It wasn't stapled.
No.
It was not affixed in any way whatsoever.
No, it was not.
You found this apparent hair at the same time you found the glass pieces on the bumper, correct?
In the same general time, yes, that's correct.
When you say same general time, it was just one day you were there, correct?
Yes.
The range of time wasn't that broad, was it, correct?
No, it was not correct.
What was the range of time between finding one versus the other?
I don't know specifically. I was there for approximately 2 hours, so within that time period.
So within just 2 hours, you found the pieces of glass and the apparent hair. And within that time, you did your examination, you made your notes, all of that done within just 2 hours.
Yes, that's correct.
You remember the journey we talked about of the vehicle that you spoke about with regard to Canton, Dighton, Canton? Recall that?
Yes, I do.
So do you know whether, do you have any knowledge whether that hair was part of that journey? Do you have any knowledge?
I do not.
Do you know when the hair was deposited on the vehicle?
No.
Was it easy or hard to take off the apparent hair from that quarter panel?
It was easy. Again, I picked it up with a pair of tweezers.
Didn't give you any resistance?
No.
With your honor's permission, I would like us to look at a depiction of the hair.
I saw something on X today that defense hired their own DNA expert company to review that sample, and supposedly it's not even human hair, let alone John O'Keefe's hair. I don't know if that's true or not, but does anybody have any insight on that? Please share if you do.
May I, your honor?
What exhibit number?
It is, I believe we're going to start with 144B.
Okay.
And if you could zoom in, please, Mr. Wolf, for the jury and for Ms. Hartnett. Do you still have a laser pointer, Ms. Hartnett?
Yes, sir.
Could you kindly use that and draw a circle around the apparent hair?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to refer to that as a J shape. Is that a fair description of it, or do you have a better description of it?
I see two ends of the hair and an arch, so I'm going to say more of like a C shaped.
Okay, so you would refer to that as a C shape?
Correct.
And would that be a reverse C? Then if it's a C shape?
In that picture, it's difficult to tell if the ends are making contact or if they're coming off the vehicle. So I'm not sure.
Whatever way you would.
Yeah, see, I don't know. They're calling it apparent. So if they tested it and it came back as human hair, then they wouldn't be calling it apparent right now, is the way I look at it.
describe it, a letter or shape? Because then what I'm going to do, it's not a trick here, but
Yeah.
I'm just going to show you another picture of it, of that hair that might be in a different location or different shape. So I want to give a contrast. So whatever term you want to use that's fair to you.
So I think it looks like a C. I can't say, it could also be like a U. I'm not sure which way the ends are facing from this perspective.
Can you once again, just so we're clear and the jury's clear, just draw a circle around it again, what
Sure.
you're talking about, and we won't give it a name,
Okay.
right? We'll just do the contrast. Right.
Okay.
So if I were to just say there looks like there might be a little hook at the top and then there's a vertical line, is that a fair description?
Yes.
Okay, so can we go with that? A little hook at the top and then a straight or a line, that vertical line that comes down?
Sure.
And
Yes.
that hook is orienting left, correct? Of the vertical line, it's to the left of the vertical line?
Yes, I do see it from this perspective to the left. That's
Okay,
correct.
very good. And that's the apparent hair.
Yes.
And you only saw or found one apparent hair, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, if we could, Mr. Wolk, now go to Exhibit 144A. And if you could zoom in on that for Ms. Hartnett and the jury's benefit. Could you draw a circle now around the apparent hair? Thank you. And isn't that apparent hair now oriented almost 180 degrees, the opposite, with the hook orienting right?
The photo's taken from a different angle, so do you see the hook? Are you talking about the hook at the top? Looks now, it appears to be on the right, but I can't, they're taken from different angles, sure.
How do you know they were taken from different angles? Did you take the picture?
No.
Are you speculating that it's taken from a different angle?
I mean, I'd have to see them side by side, but it's just the orientation of the, my marking. Can you put them up side by side?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If that would be helpful to you answering questions, happy to do it.
Potentially, yes. Thank you.
Mr. Wolf? Maybe we could zoom in if possible to each one, so we get it. Would that be helpful? We zoom and get a side by side of this.
I mean, even from the overalls, I can tell that they're taken.
Let's start with the overall
Okay.
first, that you would like, and then we can, okay. Is that where you wanted to start?
Yes, just by looking at those, to me, it looks like one is from slightly to the side of the vehicle and one is more directly head on.
Right, so one's slightly to the side and the other's a little bit more head-on, but that's the only difference, correct? It's
Yes.
still the same from top to bottom, it's still the same from side to side, it's the same orientation, correct?
The vehicle didn't move, but the camera angle is different in both pictures. That's what I was saying in the other one. So the camera angle is different. The one camera angle appears for who's ever taken the photo to be standing off to the right of the vehicle. The second photo looks like it's more directly head on.
The 570 is oriented the same way in both pictures, correct? You see the 570?
Yes, yes.
On the left, and you see the 570 on the right, correct?
Yes, I do.
There's same orientation, right?
They're in the same location on the vehicle, but I don't think they're at the same orientation. I think one looks,
If you could, I want to make sure you finish, but if you could just, my questions are rather narrow.
Okay.
And then if you need more time to answer them, I'm happy to do that.
So let's just ask the
Yes,
questions.
thank you, Ronnie. So
This is
isn't the 570 in each picture oriented the exact same way?
if you could just explain what you mean by oriented. I
Sure.
think that's where I'm confused.
They're the same, you can read the 570 horizontally. It's the same horizontal plane, correct? It's the same straight across, like one doesn't have the 570 upside down. You can read it from left to right, a 5, a 7, and a 0, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Now, if we can, Mr. Woke, now zoom in and get the largest depiction of each one from a zoom in.
Yeah. It looks like it flipped over. You know, it looks like a more of a flat C on the one on the left. The one on the right C looks more like a wider C and not so flat on its spine.
Are you saying the difference in how that hair appears is from a different camera angle?
No, I'm not making that conclusion. I'm just saying I can't make I can't make any other conclusion because they're from different angles. I don't feel that I can compare the two.
Is it possible that the hair moved when someone took a photograph?
Can you answer that question?
Again, I just can't make that conclusion because I didn't take the photo and the photos look like they're from different angles.
In your experience, you've taken samples many times of apparent hair, correct?
Have I taken samples
Yes.
such as that? Yes, that's correct.
Has it ever happened that when you're taking a sample, the photographer or someone breathes on it and the apparent hair moves? Does that ever happen?
I'll allow that.
I've never had firsthand experience with that. So that if somebody breathes on an item of evidence, that would be something I would note.
Other than, and is it correct that you're speculating as to what could be causing this difference? Are you speculating?
Sustained. I'd like to see counsel at sidebar for a couple of minutes, please.
All right, that is about a thrown a lifeline for prosecution. So let's see how late. Maybe it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and yeah, that's it. All right, that's what's going on. Court's got to shut down here at 4 o'clock. And it's a good time to throw in the safety net for Hank and his team. All right, so let's see. I'm going to jump ahead here to show that it closes out after this sidebar. So they're going to still call her tomorrow because they're not done with Cross. So Alessi will have more questions of her tomorrow.
Your Honor, with the court's permission.
Sure, you can put it
that-
back up on the screen.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience, Ms. Hartnett. Do you have any explanation that you're certain of with regard to those two depictions?
Regarding what, sir? I'm sorry.
The two depictions that are up on the screen,
Do I have any explanation of what?
of those two depictions that you're certain of?
Those are both a depiction of the same apparent hair that I collected from the vehicle.
Thank you.
All right, so turn on the lights, please. Jurors, I'm told with counsel this is a good place to break. So we're going to break for today. Please, those same cautions, do not discuss this case with anyone. Do not do any independent research or investigation into the case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about the case, please disregard it and let us know. Please be very careful with your social media. We'll see you tomorrow. Ms. Hartnett, we need you back tomorrow as well.
Okay, thank you.
So you can walk out at the end.
Wow, this kind of expert they're bringing in just really helped the defense. So great job, Brennan and team. All right, I'll take some questions here now before we wrap it up. Put reg emojis if you can, so it's easier for me to tell a question. Yeah, Andy, school, they probably have tried that at home. Those that have cars, I assume most of them do. Poor woman would have been more direct than just concede the point. Yeah, she was embarrassed. She didn't want to admit that. She finally did admit she could be wrong. Two emails. If I get emails during the show and they're like 20, 30 minutes or whatever. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I'll have to look at that later. You're talking about who was seen at the police station. Was it Higgins or was it Brian Albert? So I'll have to look at that later. Sign, you're saying, do I think this will ripple the justice system? I think it will open a lot of people's eyes, but I think that place is so entrenched in corruption that I don't think it's going to change. No matter how much the world sees what a joke that place has become in the legal world. Yeah, you really can't make this stuff up. It's just so bizarre. Is this some kind of dream we're living here? Is this really real? All right. Well, thanks you guys for supporting justice for Karen Reed. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now and be back tomorrow night to cover tomorrow's actions. And I'm expecting another day where they're spinning their wheels, and we still have not seen the medical examiner talk about how John died, the cause of death, the manner of death, because they want to run from it. The prosecution is trying to hide the ball, and they've still not shown the photos, the autopsy photos that we have seen from trial one. Those are still hid in the back room here. Hank doesn't want to present those till the very end because he has to, but even then he's not going to call the medical examiner because that expert doesn't fit their script. So anyway, y'all take care. I'll see you tomorrow night. Hopefully